All right, guys. Eyesopenincalifornia California here. I was just talking with one of my good buddies, and he reminded me of something in conversation. Reminded me of a couple of dreams, a handful of dreams. In fact, these are all four of the dreams that I believe I met the devil. So, without further ado, let's get started. Okay. So the first dream that I had was 13 years ago, right? And I remember this dream like it was yesterday. So I'm out in the country somewhere, and I'm driving an old beat up Chevy pickup, right? An old like a C10 Chevy pickup, and I'm driving out in the country, and it's pitch black outside, and the truck that I'm driving runs out of gas. So pull over on the side of this dirt road, and I'm looking around the area, and all I see is there's only one porch light off in the distance, way off in the distance. So I grab the gas can out of the back of the truck, and I start walking towards his house. And as I start walking towards his house, I start noticing that there's like silhouettes of people in the window hiding. And as I'm getting closer and getting closer, um, I'm saying something like, "Hey, is anybody home?" And then it's a Mexican family, and they're yelling at me in Spanish, "El diablo viene," the devil's coming. And I said, "What?" And they said, "Corre, run," right? So I'm looking around, and I'm like, "What are these people talking about? The devil's coming, run from what?" And their house was to the left, and I'm looking at the house, and then I see something big and black move. It caught my vision. I'm like, "Whoa, what was that?" And then I looked at them again, and then I see it again, and I'm like, "Uh-oh." And they're telling me, "Correle." So I, I took off running back towards the truck. And as I'm running to the truck, I get to the front of the truck, and I threw the empty gas can in the back of the bed, and I opened up the door of the truck. So I opened up the door, jumped inside the cab of the truck, and I went to shut the door without looking. And as I'm getting ready to slam the door, it stops. There's something, there's something stopping the door from closing, something big. And I feel, ugh, yeah, getting an ugly feeling. I'm feeling breathing on the back of my neck, like the snorts of a big animal. And I turned around, and boom, there's a big goat in my face. And I woke up, whoa, just freaked me out, right? So, make the long story short, uh, a couple months later, I ended up buying a old Chevy C10. So that was kind of ironic, right? So that was 13 years ago. So 13 years ago, I believe the devil was trying to attack me, right? So now, let's see. So that's the first dream. The second dream that I had, that I can remember right now off the top of my head, um, it happened 3 years ago. And so here's what happened. I'm in a college auditorium, and this auditorium is kind of shaped like like a baseball field, kind of, sort of. And there's different rows. There's this row here, and then there's the center, and then there's a row over here, right? There's three rows, and I'm sitting probably about right here. Actually, how did it go? Yeah, it was this way. It was like a wedge, and this right here was the stage, right? So I'm sitting right here. I remember this exactly. I'm sitting right here with one of my buddies, and it's like a college class or something. And the professor comes on the stage, and he's like, "All right, guys, before we get started, let me ask the question. Everybody, or let me make the, what do you say? Before we get started, let me get a show of hands. Whoever believes that there is a God, raise your hands. And nobody raised their hand. So I raised my hand. And he goes, there's always one. There's always one. In every class, there's always one. And he goes, why do you think there's a God? I said, because there is. And he goes, well, how can you defend that? I said, it doesn't need defense. There's a God. That's all there is to it, right? So he goes, we got another one. And then down in the front, right, if this is what the auditorium looks like and it kind of funnels, down in the front, right here, in the center, the very point of this middle stage area, a big old dude stands up, big, like 10 feet tall, big, 10 feet tall. And if I had to put a weight on him, I would say 800 pounds, 10 foot tall, 800 pounds. This guy stands up. And when he stands up, the first step that he makes, it makes the ground shake. And he stands up and plants the other foot. And then he turns around and looks at me and shakes his head like this, right? Then he starts walking slowly up the aisle where I am. And every step that he's taking, it's shaking the whole ground. Like this guy is massive and like powerful. And my buddy's sitting next to me on my right, and he bumps me with his elbow. And he says, hey, I think you're up. And this guy wants to scrap. And I said, I got this. So I took my shirt off and took off walking down the aisle to meet him, right? And as soon as I started walking towards him, he stops, turns around, and starts walking the other way where he came from. Then he goes around where he was sitting. Then he walks all the way up this other aisle. So if he was here at first, and then he was walking back towards me. And then when I started walking towards him, then he went back to where he was and went out the other aisle and walked completely out of the building. But every step that he took, it was moving. He got outside. And once he got outside, every step that he took was shaking the building. Like the walls of the building were vibrating and shaking. And I can hear him walking away to the point where I knew he was at least 100 yards away from that door that he exited. But the vibration and the ground was still there. Like this was a humongous, massive, powerful entity, right? End of dream. So that's the end of that dream. Okay. Third dream. Old house. Okay. So this was 2 years ago, right? So I have a dream that I just bought a house, and it was an old house. If I had to put a year on it, I would say it was early 1950s house, like in an older part of a city. And the house was a little tore back. It needed renovations. It was a fixer-upper. And for whatever reason, I had bought it. And so I'm the only one there because I just bought it, and I'm just barely starting to move stuff in. And I am in this house, and the kitchen sink is like a farmer style sink, but it's very shallow. It's not very deep at all. In fact, I was trying to wash like a some kind of a coffee cup. It was like the only dish that was in the house. So I'm washing this cup, and it's not a cup that I own. I have no idea what this cup is. It's like blue. So I'm washing this cup, and I hear something behind me, like a squeak, 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 squeak. And I turn around, and I'm like, what? And I look, and there's a big old dude, big old muscle, big old buff dude sitting in a recliner, rocking back and forth with a cell phone in his hand and earphones on. He's just rocking back and forth in my house, right? And this was before I got baptized, right? So I came to the faith 4 years ago and didn't get my baptism for 2 years as I was learning about God, learning about Jesus. I literally knew nothing about anything until 4 years ago. And then after 2 years of investigating stuff and looking at stuff, then we went down and got baptized as a family. And I'll get to that afterwards. So I was learning about God and Jesus for 2 years before we actually went down and got baptized, which thank God that the end hasn't come quite yet, because I wouldn't have been ready. So this guy's rocking back and forth, getting back to the point, rocking back and forth in the chair. I walk up to him and I'm like, hey, what are you doing in my house? And he sits up and he goes, your house? I said, yeah, this is my house. And I looked. Oh, wait, there's one detail. When I first got in the house, before I washed the cup, I looked out a window and the window was broken. And as I looked out the window, that window was pointing straight at a side fence, right? But that side fence had 2 of the big pickets missing. So like a person could walk through that hole in the fence to the neighbor's house. But the neighbor's house, their window was also broken, right? And I could see all the way through their house through that broken window, all the way to the outside. And on the other side of their house was their fence, and there was pickets missing from that fence. It was like somebody was using that as a way to get through all the houses, right? All the houses, like. So anyways, that's one detail, right? So I go to wash the dish, and then I hear the rocking back and forth, and I turn around and I see this big old meaty fella sitting in a recliner. And I went over there and I said, hey, what are you doing in my house? And he says, this is your house? I said, yeah, I just bought it. And he goes, oh, I normally hang out in all these houses. I said, why? And he goes, that's just what I do. And I said, oh, okay. And I said, well, you know what? I said, my family hasn't moved in yet. This is my first day here. So, just finish whatever it is you're doing. And after you get done doing whatever you're doing, please, I'm going to ask you to exit my house and not come back. And he says, hey, you know what? Because you've been so cool. And he pulls out a big old wad of money. He goes, because you've been so cool, I'm going to give you some money. And I said, I don't want your money. And he says, no, because most people would have called the authority on me. He said authority, singular, which I remember that like yesterday. And so I said, yeah, but after this, just don't come back. So he gave me the money, and I took the money in the dream. I took the money, right? Then after that, after he was done with this thing, whatever he was doing, he got up and he left. And then as soon as he gets outside, this was when I lived in Modesto. Then all of Modesto PD swarmed him and arrested him, took him to jail, right? Then this guy's wife tells me, hey, he got arrested. He got in trouble by the authority, singular. So I said, okay, what's that got to do with me? And she goes, well, they took all the money that was in his pocket, and he's supposed to bail, and bail's like $400. And then I said, I don't know what to tell you. And then she goes, yeah, but didn't he give you $400? I said, yeah, he did. And she goes, well, why don't you bail him out? And I said, no, that's his problem. And that's the end of the dream. So, okay, now moving on to the last dream. This is the 4th dream, right? So the minute I fall asleep, I wake up, or the minute I fall asleep, I'm in a narrow and long jail cell. And I'm sitting on a bed that's on the backside, right? So sitting on a bed back here. And I'm just sitting down looking at my feet. And I'm in this room by myself. And for whatever reason, I know I'm by myself. And I'm sitting there. And then I look up, and there's a big, giant, humongous dude. He's always a humongous dude, always. And I think, well, we'll get to that afterwards. there's a big, humongous guy standing right there. And I'm like, whoa. And I told him, I said, boy, you sure are sneaky. And he goes, yes, I am sneaky. And I said, you sure are big. Like, big, gargantuous, just a big dude. And he's like, yes, I am big. And I said, how did you get in here? And then he said, you said something like, you already said, I'm sneaky. And I'm like, okay, well, then who are you? And he goes, you know. And I said, no, I don't. And I asked you a question, who are you? And then I woke up. That's the end of the dream. 4 dreams. 4 dreams that I can remember right now of the devil in my dreams. So here's what I know. In all my dreams, it's a big and powerful figure, right? And anybody who thinks he's not a big and powerful figure is sadly mistaken. You let Jesus deal with that one. You just leave that one alone, right? The book of Jude, right? Jude, where it says, when the archangel Michael was disputing over the body of Moses with Satan, right? He didn't dare bring an accusation against him, but he said, the Lord rebuked thee, right? Michael didn't say, I rebuke thee. He said, the Lord rebuked thee, right? So I understand Michael's powerful. I understand. Believe me, I know. But he also is not going to voluntarily get into it with him if he don't have to, right? Only when ordered. And when ordered, we all know how that goes. He wins, right? But still, he's not volunteering for that mission because that's, it's a thing. So I just want to remind people when it comes to the evil one, you make sure you say the Lord rebuke thee, right? So that's one thing, because I tell you what, and I'm not trying to give props. I'm trying to call it the way it is. Because I seek truth, and my illusion, I have no illusion. Make no mistake about it. That is a very powerful figure that people are constantly challenging. And well, anyways, you just leave that one alone. You let Jesus deal with that one, right? So those are my 4 dreams. Every single one of them freaked me out, and every single one of them was the same. It was just a big, massive beast, just a big animal. So anyways, if I was listening to a program the other day on YouTube, and they said that don't be concerned at all when the evil one comes after you. Don't be concerned. Of course he's going to come after you, right? He's looking for somebody to be swimming with him in the lake of fire. That's why he's coming after you. He's coming after you because you're drawing near to the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. That's why he's coming after you. And he's shooting all these darts at you from far away, right? All these fiery arrows. So don't worry about that when you're being persecuted by the evil one. You need to be more worried about when you're not being persecuted by the evil one, because the evil one leaves the wicked people alone. Because why would he bother? Why would he bother messing with wicked people if he already knows their fate? They're going to be swimming in a lake of fire. He wouldn't waste his time. He only wastes his time with the saints to see how many he can derail off the track, right? So everybody else, just be strong. Be strong, and you know what? Count yourself special that he's coming after you. He's coming after you because you're a weapon. You are a weapon. Because greater is he who is in you than he who is in the world. That's why he's coming after you. Right? So, eyes open to California. Thank you. Have a good one.